What if I told you that your financial flow isn't blocked because you don't know how to make money, but because you keep interrupting it without realizing? Think about it for a second. How many times have you tried to manifest money, focus on abundance, repeat affirmations, visualize wealth, and still felt like nothing was moving, like something invisible was holding everything back, no matter how much effort you put in? That feeling isn't random, and it's not because manifestation doesn't work. It's because most people are trying to force money into their lives while unconsciously operating in a state that pushes it away. You've probably heard about the law of attraction, about aligning your energy, about becoming a match to wealth, but no one really explains what that actually means in real life. No one tells you what's happening in the small, unnoticed moments, the exact moments where your financial flow either opens or shuts down completely, because manifestation doesn't happen in big, dramatic actions. It happens in subtle shifts, in how you think, how you react, how you feel when nothing seems to be happening, and that's where everything starts to go wrong. You say you want abundance, but then you check your bank account and feel tension. You try to believe money is coming, but then a bill shows up and your energy drops instantly. You repeat that you're attracting wealth, but deep down, there's still doubt, impatience, and a constant need to see proof, and that creates a contradiction, a silent conflict between what you say and what you actually feel. And here's the truth most people never realize. Money doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the state you consistently live in. That means you can be doing everything right on the surface and still blocking your own financial flow internally. Not because you're doing something wrong on purpose, but because no one ever showed you where the interruption actually happens. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, because it's not about learning more techniques. It's about recognizing the exact pattern that keeps resetting your manifestation over and over again, and finally breaking it. Right now, there's a specific moment in your day, a small, almost automatic reaction, where your flow gets cut off. You don't notice it, you don't question it, but it's happening consistently. And in the next part, I'm going to show you exactly what that moment is, and why it has more power over your financial reality than anything you've tried before. And before we go deeper into this, I want you to pause for just a moment and be honest with yourself. Have you ever felt like you were so close to a breakthrough, like something was about to shift, but then somehow everything just went quiet again, like the flow stopped, and you couldn't explain why? If that feeling resonates with you, don't just keep it in your head. Go down to the comments and write something simple like, "I feel the block," or "This happens to me, not for me, but for you," because the moment you acknowledge it, you stop pretending everything is fine, and you start seeing the pattern more clearly. And when you see it, you can finally change it. Also, take a second to like this video. That small action might seem irrelevant, but it's actually a signal, a way of telling your mind, this matters, I'm paying attention, I'm ready to shift something. And the more you reinforce that internally, the easier it becomes to stay aligned with the state that attracts abundance and financial flow. And if you're someone who wants to truly understand how manifestation works, not just on the surface, but in a way that actually creates real results, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because what we're building here isn't just motivation. It's awareness, consistency, and a new way of thinking that allows money, wealth, and opportunities to enter your life without resistance. Now, stay with me, because what you're about to see next is the exact moment where almost everyone unknowingly shuts down their own financial flow. And once you recognize it, you'll start noticing it happening in real time. Now let's slow this down, because what I'm about to show you is not obvious at first. In fact, most people go years repeating the same manifestation techniques, chasing financial abundance, trying to activate the law of attraction, without ever realizing that the problem isn't what they're doing when they're focused, it's what they're doing in the in-between moments. That's where the interruption lies. It's not when you're visualizing wealth, not when you're repeating affirmations, not when you're consciously trying to attract money. In those moments, you actually feel aligned. You feel hopeful. You feel like something is possible. But then life happens. You check your phone. You see a notification, maybe a bill, maybe a reminder, maybe something small that triggers a reaction. Or you open your bank app just to see, and instantly your body tightens. There's a subtle drop in your energy. A quiet thought appears, I need more. This isn't enough. And right there, that exact second, the financial flow gets interrupted. Not dramatically, not in a way you would notice, but internally, something shifts. You move from a state of abundance into a state of lack. From allowing, into controlling. From trusting, into needing proof. And this shift might last just a few seconds, but it's enough. Because manifestation doesn't respond to what you occasionally feel. It responds to what you consistently return to. So even if you spend minutes trying to align your energy, to attract money, to step into the version of you who already has wealth. If throughout your day you keep returning to doubt, tension, and scarcity, that becomes your dominant signal, and the universe doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your state. This is why so many people feel stuck. They think they need a better method, a stronger affirmation, a more powerful technique to manifest money faster. But the truth is, they're already doing enough. They're just unknowingly canceling it over and over again. It's like trying to fill a glass with water while there's a small hole at the bottom. No matter how much you pour in, it never stays, and that hole is not something external. It's a pattern, a habit, a conditioned way of reacting to your current reality. You look at what is, and you emotionally agree with it. You see a low number, and you feel limited. You see delay, and you feel impatience. You don't see movement, and you assume nothing is happening, and without realizing, you reaffirm the exact state that keeps your financial flow inactive, because the moment you react to reality as if it's final, you disconnect from the version of you that is already in motion. And this is the part that changes everything once you truly understand it. You don't manifest money by reacting to what you see. You manifest money by holding a state that is independent of what you see. That means your power is not in controlling circumstances. It's in controlling your internal position in relation to those circumstances, and that's uncomfortable at first because your mind wants proof. It wants evidence. It wants to feel safe before it commits to a belief. But manifestation works the opposite way. You commit first, and then reality reorganizes. And if you don't understand this, you end up stuck in a loop. You try to feel abundant, but only when things look better. You try to trust, but only when you see signs. You try to believe, but only when it's easy. And that creates inconsistency, a constant back and forth between alignment and doubt, between flow and resistance. Between attracting money and pushing it away. And the most dangerous part is that it feels normal. It feels logical. It feels like you're just being realistic. But in reality, you're reinforcing the very pattern that keeps your financial flow closed. And the moment you start noticing this, not judging it, not fighting it, just seeing it clearly, something shifts. Because now you're no longer unconscious. Now you can catch that exact moment where your state begins to drop. Where your energy contracts, where you're about to agree with limitation again. And in that moment, you have a choice, a small one, but powerful. To follow the old reaction, or interrupt it. To go back to scarcity, or return to alignment. To keep repeating the pattern, or start breaking it. And this is where most people think the work ends. They believe that simply becoming aware is enough. But awareness is just the beginning, because in the next step, you'll see what actually replaces that old pattern, and how a simple internal command can instantly shift your state back into flow, even in the middle of your day. If this made you realize how often you've been interrupting your own financial flow without noticing, you can comment something like "I see the pattern," just to anchor that awareness, because what comes next is where everything starts to move differently. Now that you can see the pattern, now that you've started noticing those small, almost invisible moments where your financial flow gets interrupted, there's something even deeper you need to understand, because recognizing the interruption is powerful, but it doesn't automatically stop it. In fact, most people fall into a new trap right here. They become aware. They start catching themselves thinking in scarcity, reacting to lack, feeling that subtle tension when they check their reality, and then they try to fight it. They try to force themselves to think positively. They try to override the feeling. They try to jump from doubt straight into abundance. And it doesn't work. Not consistently, because the moment you try to fight your current state, you're still giving it power. You're still reacting to it. You're still treating it as something real that needs to be controlled. And that is just another form of resistance. This is where the misunderstanding about manifestation becomes dangerous. People think activating the law of attraction means constantly fixing their thoughts, correcting every negative feeling, forcing themselves into a high vibration no matter what. But that creates pressure, and pressure is not flow. Think about it. When you're trying too hard to feel abundant, when you're constantly monitoring your thoughts, when you're afraid of thinking the wrong thing, are you relaxed? Are you open? Are you allowing? Or are you tense, controlling, watching yourself all the time? Because financial flow doesn't activate in control. It activates in release. And this is the moment where everything shifts in a way most people never expect. The real interruption is not the negative thought. It's your reaction to the negative thought. It's the moment you believe it, engage with it, give it importance. That's when your state collapses. That's when you leave alignment. So instead of trying to to eliminate doubt. You learn to detach from it. Instead of fighting scarcity, you stop identifying with it. Instead of correcting every thought, you stop following them automatically. And this sounds simple, but when you actually start observing yourself, you realize how automatic everything is. A thought appears, and instantly, you're inside it, a feeling arises, and you become it. A situation shows up, and you react without even questioning. It's like your mind has been trained to pull you back into the same state again and again. And that's why your financial reality stays consistent, not because manifestation isn't working, but because your identity hasn't shifted. You're still responding as the version of you who expects delay, who expects effort, who expects proof before belief. And as long as that identity is active, the flow can't stabilize. Because the flow of money, the flow of abundance, the flow of opportunities is not something you occasionally activate. It's something you sustain through who you are. And here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a specific moment, a very precise internal shift, where you either lock into your old identity or step into a new one. It happens right after the trigger, right after you see something that would normally make you feel lack, right after the thought appears. There's a gap, a small window, and in that window, you're not fully in the old pattern yet. You're not fully reacting, you're just aware. Most people miss it. They move too fast. They get pulled back automatically. But if you slow down just enough to notice that gap, everything becomes different, because now, instead of reacting, you can choose your position, not by forcing a new thought. Not by pretending everything is perfect, but by deciding where you stand internally, regardless of what's happening externally. And this is the moment where financial flow begins to activate again, not because the outside changed, but because you stopped reinforcing the old signal. You stopped feeding the pattern that was blocking you, and for a few seconds, maybe longer, you remain in a neutral, open state. No resistance. No urgency. No need to fix anything. And in that space, something subtle happens. You feel lighter, less attached, less reactive, and that's the beginning of alignment. That's the doorway. But here's the part almost no one talks about. Staying in that state, holding that position, requires something very specific, something simple, but incredibly precise, because without it, your mind slowly pulls you back again, back into checking, back into doubt, back into needing confirmation. And that's why most people never stabilize their manifestation. They touch the state, but they don't know how to return to it on command. They experience the flow, but they can't maintain it. And that's exactly what we're about to unlock next, because there is a way to instantly bring yourself back into alignment. A command that shifts your state in real time, no matter what's happening around you. And once you understand how to use it, everything starts responding differently. If you're starting to recognize how automatic your reactions have been, and how that has been shaping your financial reality, you can comment something like, "I choose my state to anchor this shift," because what comes next is where you gain real control over your flow. So now you've seen the pattern, you've noticed the interruption, and you've even started to recognize that small window where everything can shift. But here's where most people hesitate, because they're waiting for something complicated, something mystical, something that feels powerful enough to activate the financial flow. And what I'm about to show you might feel almost too simple, but that's exactly why it works, because the flow of money, the flow of abundance, the flow of manifestation doesn't respond to complexity. It responds to clarity and decision. There is a command, not a long affirmation, not a ritual, not something you repeat 100 times, but a precise internal command that you use in that exact moment we talked about. That gap, that space between the trigger and your reaction. And the command is this: I allow, not I will receive, not money is coming, not I hope this works, just I allow. At first, it might not seem like much, but stay with this, because what matters is not the words, it's the shift behind them. When you say I allow, you are not trying to create something, you are not forcing manifestation, you are not chasing money, you are stepping out of resistance. Think about how you normally react. You see something that triggers lack, and your body tightens. Your mind starts calculating, you feel the need to fix, control, understand. That's resistance, that's contraction, that's what blocks the financial flow. Now imagine that exact same moment, but instead of following the reaction, you pause and internally say, I allow, and you mean it, not as a wish, but as a position. I allow things to move. I allow money to come in ways I can't see yet. I allow this moment to be incomplete without needing to fix it, and instantly, something softens. The tension drops, the urgency fades, you stop pushing against reality and start opening to it. That's alignment. That's where manifestation begins to reorganize. Because when you remove resistance, the flow doesn't need to be created. It was already there. You were just blocking it. And this is where it becomes becomes powerful in a way most people don't expect. You don't need to wait for the perfect environment. You don't need to feel amazing all the time. You don't need to eliminate every negative thought. You only need to catch the moment and use the command, I allow. At first, you'll do it consciously. You'll notice the trigger, pause, apply the command, and maybe it lasts a few seconds, then your mind pulls you back again. That's normal, but every time you return, you weaken the old pattern. You reduce the automatic reaction. You create space. And in that space, your identity starts to shift. You stop being the person who reacts to lack. You start becoming the person who remains open, regardless of circumstances. And that's when something interesting starts happening. You begin to feel less desperate, less attached, less focused on when and how, and ironically, that's when things start moving faster. Opportunities appear. Ideas come. Conversations shift. Not because you forced them, but because your state is no longer blocking them. Because manifestation is not about attracting something from the outside. It's about removing the resistance that prevents it from reaching you. And this command, as simple as it sounds, is your access point. But there's a detail here that makes all the difference. If you use it only once, occasionally, when you remember, you'll feel temporary relief. You'll feel a moment of alignment, but it won't stabilize your financial flow. Because flow is not activated once. It's maintained. And this is where most people lose it. They discover something powerful. They feel the shift, and then they go back to their old patterns. During the day, they say I allow, and 5 minutes later, they're checking again, doubting again, reacting again, and slowly, the state fades, the alignment weakens. The flow closes again, not because it disappeared, but because it wasn't sustained. And that's where the real transformation happens, not in activating the state, but in holding it long enough for your reality to catch up. And there's a very specific way to do that without effort, without forcing, without constantly monitoring yourself. A way to integrate this command into your identity so it becomes natural, automatic, almost effortless. And once that happens, you're no longer trying to enter the flow. You are the flow. If this shift in perspective made you realize how simple yet powerful alignment can be, you can comment something like I allow the flow just to anchor this state inside you. Because what comes next is what determines whether this becomes temporary or permanent. And this is where everything either becomes real for you or just another concept that felt good for a moment and slowly fades away. Because knowing the command is one thing, using it occasionally is another, but integrating it into who you are is what actually activates consistent financial flow. This is the part no one teaches properly. People talk about manifestation, about the law of attraction, about attracting wealth and abundance, but they rarely show you how to make it natural, how to make it something you don't have to remember, something you don't have to force. Because if you need to remember all the time, it's not integrated yet. And if it's not integrated, your old patterns will always come back. So instead of thinking I need to use this command more, you shift into a different approach. You start building anchors, small, intentional moments during your day where I allow becomes your default response, not your emergency tool. For example, think about the moments that usually trigger you: checking your phone, looking at your bank account, thinking about a payment, a deadline, an expectation. These moments are not random. They are predictable entry points where your old identity tries to take control again. So instead of waiting to react, you anticipate them before you even open that app, before you even check anything. You pause for a second and internally say, I allow, not because something bad is happening, but because you are choosing your state before reality tries to define it for you. And this changes everything, because now you're not reacting to circumstances, you're leading your state into them. And slowly, something begins to rewire inside you. The same situations that used to trigger tension start feeling neutral. The same thoughts that used to pull you into doubt lose intensity. The same patterns that used to control your reactions start weakening, not because you eliminated them, but because you stopped feeding them. And as this happens, your baseline begins to shift. You're no longer someone who occasionally aligns with abundance. You become someone who naturally remains open. And this is where financial flow stabilizes, because now it's not about catching yourself all the time. It's about being in a state that doesn't collapse so easily. But there's one more layer to this that most people completely overlook, and it's the difference between temporary alignment and irreversible change. Because even after all this, even after you start using the command, even after you build awareness, even after you feel the shift, there will be moments where reality tries to pull you back harder, moments where something bigger happens. An unexpected expense, delay. A situation that feels more real than the small triggers you were dealing with before. And in those moments, your mind will try to convince you that this is different, that this is serious, that this requires worrying, control, urgency. And this is the final test of your state, because it's easy to say I allow when things are calm, but can you hold that same openness when your emotions are louder? Can you remain in alignment when your old identity is trying to take over completely? Because this is where your financial reality truly begins to reorganize, not when things are easy, but when you refuse to return to the old pattern, even when it feels justified. And this doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means you stop letting external situations dictate your internal state. You stop giving circumstances the authority to define how you feel, how you think, how you position yourself. And the moment you do that, something powerful happens. You break the cycle. You step out of the loop that kept recreating the same results. You stop being a reaction to your reality and start becoming the source of it. And from that point on, manifestation is no longer something you try to do. It becomes something that naturally unfolds through you, through your state, through your consistency, through your ability to remain open, even when it would be easier to close. And this is where the flow begins to feel different. Less forced, less urgent, more natural, more consistent, like things are starting to move without you needing to chase them. And if you've been paying attention, you've probably already felt a glimpse of this, a moment where you didn't react like you used to, a moment where something felt lighter, easier, more open. That's not random. That's the beginning. And the more you recognize it, the more you reinforce it. So if this shifted something inside you, even slightly, you can comment something like I stay open or I am the flow, just to anchor this new identity. Because what comes next is about locking this in so it doesn't fade, so it becomes part of you. And if you made it this far, it's not by accident. Something here resonated with you. Something clicked. Maybe it was the moment you realized how often you've been reacting, or maybe it was the simplicity of the command I allow, and how powerful it actually is when you truly step into it. So don't just leave this here as another video you watch. Lock this in. If this message spoke to you in any way, comment I allow the flow right now, not just as a comment, but as a decision, as a signal that you're no longer going back to the old pattern. And if you felt something shift inside you, even slightly, take 2 seconds and hit the like button. That simple action helps this message reach more people who are stuck in the same cycle you're breaking right now. And if you're serious about changing your financial reality, about activating real manifestation, real alignment, and consistent financial flow, subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning, and the next videos are designed to take you deeper into this shift, step by step. And right now, there's a video on your screen that connects perfectly with what you just learned. It will show you the next piece, the one that helps you stabilize this state and make it automatic. So don't break the momentum. Click the video on your screen, and I'll see you there.